Do you see Elias out there?
No, I haven't. You want me to go check?
Yeah, please. He's probably just back from lunch. Okay, Math 0099. We're looking at our syllabus today in greater detail. The preferred way to get communication to me is via my email address. So make sure you have my email address, kathy.jansen@minwest.edu.
I can help you see this.
I do send text messages via your grades first, so if you're interested in receiving my text messages, you can make certain that you're able to receive. This is what we call a hybrid course. We have ITV, online, and face-to-face sections. But it is a structured course, so we are all on the same lecture, homework, and testing schedule. Required, you need to have the introductory and intermediate algebra access card. It's really just a cardboard piece that you open up, and inside is your access code, and we'll be making sure that we get our access to your privileged account at my math lab. Your access card and access to my math lab also gives you full access to an e-textbook. Optionally, you can purchase the printed textbook. Many students do, but you must have the access card. Be sure that you're checking your Minnesota West email account. It may not be your preferred or favored or #1 email account, but it is where instructors communicate with you. So important pieces of information, grade updates. If I need to get a hold of you for some reason, that's the likely way that I will contact you, through email. So be sure you're checking your email, live email account. And in the subject line, if I send you an email, you're going to see K. Jansen in uppercase. So in your subject line, you should see my name, K. Jansen. It should stand out as best as possible. I can't make it red, but it's uppercase, and then it'll say Math 0099. So as far as I'm concerned, those are important messages. You should be following those closely. I don't send email for fun. So I'm communicating related class information with you. Our syllabus regarding assessment. In class daily, I pretty much lecture through the next course content pages in the textbook. I work problems with you. We go over material, we problem solve, we look at a variety of devices that might assist us in calculation. If you miss a class or know that you're going to be gone for a couple days, it's nice to just email me with a heads up so I can make that appropriate excusal. There's typically homework per chapter. So we're looking at about 4 chapter tests. There's a midterm exam and a final exam. Your homework category. Homework is 100 points each. All your resources are available to you. Complete by the due date and at my math lab. Your homework is online at the online My Math Lab site. Our chapter tests, sometimes called unit tests, 100 points each. Open resources, and then just make note that there is an optional retake on your test. Just kind of trying to set the comfort level a little bit. And I see the lowest score is dropped at the end of the semester. So your lowest test score is dropped from evaluation at final evaluation time. Those tests, again, are at my math lab. So we have our original, and at my math lab, you'll see chapter 4O, your original test, again, all open resources, must be completed within the announced time frame. If you score below 85% on the original test, then you're a candidate to take the retake test. And within that window of opportunity, again, you still would have to complete the retake test. So the retake test at my math lab, typically I kind of abbreviate that. Chapter 4 retake test, open resources, must be completed within the time frame. You're able to bring your score up to a maximum of 85%. So I will post the higher of your 2 tests up to a maximum of 85%. So obviously you want to study hard, take the original test, and do as best as you possibly can, because we're moving on in class with new information. But if you are taking the retake, study, review, kind of prep again to take the test and try to get that maximum 85%. That's a high B for evaluation purposes. The master exam is 200 points. That's our midterm exam. It's open book and all resources, but it's likely to be proctored. And that means that someone in authority will have to observe and sign our paperwork that they observed you take the mastery exam. We have several places on campus that can do that for you. All of the LARCs are able to arrange for appointments to proctor exams. And at that time, I have a detailed handout that suggests other community folks that might be able to proctor for you. And then your final exam, that too is 200 points. It's comprehensive from the beginning of class to where we end in topics. It may be proctored. That's a little less likely. Our midterm is proctored. Your final may or may not be proctored. And then our overall grading, 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 65 to 79 is a C, and below that is a NC. It's no credit. Is this what you'll see on your transcript? And then a couple things to note. You must achieve a C average, that's 65% or greater, to receive credit for this course, and that big and, you must receive 60% or better on the final exam. So you do have to pass the final exam to pass the course and be carrying a passing grade at the time of the final exam. Other information is in your student handbook for the most part, but might want to check. Right about midterm, I'll suggest to you that any late or outstanding assignments need to be turned in at this time, or else a 0 will stay in your grade book. So if some assignment got away from you and you just didn't get it turned in, a 0 sitting in your grade book, you have a chance to catch up. Any percentage is better than a 0. So a chance to catch up at midterm, but then at midterm, if it's not turned in by then, we're done. From midterm to the end of the semester, I'll give you another chance to turn in from midterm to the end of the semester late or outstanding homework. But I'm not going to grade chapter 4 materials again, the very first materials. So kind of chunk it up. We're looking at about from now till midterm, you do have grace to turn in a late assignment or some assignment that you missed. But after midterm, I won't go back and grade those. Okay, if you have questions on the syllabus. Right, the next handout is our student registration instructions. That handout is available at D2L under content. Print that off and follow these directions then to install and establish your account at My Math Lab. So you will need an email address, you need a course ID, and you need to purchase the access code. Unless you were in MATH0098 first 8 weeks, then you can log in with your course ID and your credentials and select the right course to move forward. So those directions are here. Your course ID, you will need to have the course ID, your email address, and your credentials if you are going to be advancing with a previous account. Otherwise, you'll follow the directions to create a new account. There's also a temporary access available, and you'll need your email address and course ID again, and then I think you need to scroll down just a little bit at that point and look for a temporary access option and choose that option for 14 days, about 2 weeks. And then this handout references how to upgrade from your temporary access to full access at that time. So at our course homepage at D12, some of you have taken the syllabus quiz and actually completed the first week's attendance quiz. Want to be taking care of that business so you don't forget. Quizzes, we have a syllabus quiz due October 31st. We've kind of walked through that together now a couple times and today in detail. And then quiz 1, it's just Q1 for the first week, typically Monday through Sundays. So make sure that you get that, yes, I attended class this week credit. And your attendance is graded at the end of the semester. Then under content, who were following along or printed the syllabus. How to access my recordings. You'll see in the left-hand navigation menu now that recorded lectures fall 2018, our last half semester course. Clicking there, the links to the recording, yesterday's recording, the links to the recordings begin to populate in this area. You'll also notice in the left-hand margin that I've put some older lectures out there. This is for fall first half. So just another flavor of what we're talking about. Same content, be another place to look at course material. Kind of hard to find directly because it's by date. But then back to student resources. You have your registration, how to enroll at my math lab, and then how to do homework and tests at my math lab. And that's a video presented by us. There are your how-to tours at my math lab. Then I think our directions say to email me your U.S. postal mailing address. So email me your U.S. postal mailing address so I can send you the blue card reference. I have one with you. Oh, there it is. Okay, the blue card. Oh, it is a blue card, and it's laminated, and it has a wealth of information on the card for you, kind of a crib sheet of formulas and relationships that we study in this course. So it's kind of a nice little handheld crib sheet, and I'll mail that to you. So if you send me your U.S. postal mailing address, I'll get a crib sheet blue card to you. How to prepare for chapter tests. There's a little handout there that might give you some tips or hints. How to contact the help desk. The help desk is where we have help available even at a distance. Help can be scheduled to tutor you at a distance with Adobe Connect. There's a couple other items. We'll be using a graphing utility, online, open source, and free. You might need graph paper as we move into the course. So you could print some graph paper there. And then Math TV with videos by topic. Just again, more resources for you. Our topic would be algebra. Let's look at exponents. And then we can choose an English speaking or a Spanish speaking solution to the problem. That may be helpful to some of us, but at least there's an option for that. Okay, and next in our left-hand margin at D2L is tutors. And these are tutors, peer tutors, who can work with you again on the Worthington campus in the library or by appointment at a distance with Adobe Connect. So they can assist you by appointment, of course, at hours convenient to both of you. So take advantage of their assistance. And then at my math lab, I'm at our course homepage. And as you begin now to set up your device, your first assignment once you log in is to run your browser check. It's right on your home page, right in the center of the working area. Make sure your device is compatible with my math lab and follow the tour on how to enter your answers so that you know how your keyboard is going to need to be used to enter correct notation for answers. The assignment module in the left-hand area, my math lab, will populate with assignments, homework, and tests. I see this all assignments tag. I'm just going to click that to pull down. There's always more if there's a little pull down arrow. And I just want to look at homework right now. So in the homework area, there is a sample homework session that you can work on. It's open for you to just experiment a little bit with your device and how to enter keyboard keystrokes. It's not graded. I'm going to pull down then for tests and quizzes. Right up here is where my tests will populate when I create a test for this course. Your instructor has not created any tests or quizzes for you yet, but they will populate at the top. Above, the sample tests and quizzes presented by the publisher. So if you want to practice and kind of catch up, review, gear up, we're starting in chapter 4. So there are pre-tests and post-tests for each of those chapters through the entire text. Now, they are there for you to self-discipline, review, study, prep, whatever. They're not graded. There's a study plan that you kind of initiate yourself. The study plan as you decide to work through problems or practice problems. Again, the study plan is not graded. Your grade book is your grade book maintained at my math lab. It's just populating the scores that you receive for your homework and your tests. And then I look at those scores and post them into D2L. So at the end of the time window for an assignment or test, I'll populate the grades from my math lab to D2L. So D2L is your official grade book. It's your overall grade book where all projects alongside my math lab scores are maintained. The e-text, this is the full version of the textbook. Chapter contents, I find that to be a quick way to get to a particular page number. At least it's my preferred way to get to a particular page number. So I'll use the chapter contents from the left-hand menu bar and then choose table of contents. First time use, it seems to take a while to populate the grade book or the ebook. And I can't wait too much longer. So in the table of contents, and then I was going to show you that up in the upper left-hand corner of your e-text is a location where you can type in a page number, a page reference, following along with my lecture, and you can populate the page number and then go to that exact page number with your e-text. So some ways to navigate through the text itself. The multimedia library, left-hand menu option at My Math Lab. In the working area, then we're able to maybe fine-tune our search. We're starting in chapter 4. You can choose a particular section if you wish. But I'm looking at video. So I'm going to select video and then find now. And each section of each chapter has an overview lecture. So section 4.1 has a section overview lecture, as well as you can drill down into a particular topic with particular examples. And then we're at the next section lecture, which is the overview of the entire section. So another place where you can get video instruction. Instructors are working through examples in a particular section within the chapter we're working on. Always be sure to sign out of My Math Lab because it's privileged information. Okay, well, if you're working with me and you can get to My Math Lab e-text page 55, so we're going to start today. So page 55, we are looking at subtracting and adding signed numbers. Subtracting and adding signed numbers. So we already know how to add 2 plus 3, a positive plus a positive, 2 plus a negative 3, negative 1, and a negative 2 plus a negative 3, negative 5. So we know our rules for adding signed real numbers. Let's just look at subtracting signed numbers again. On page 55, for any real numbers a and b, a subtract a minus a subtract b is equal to a plus the opposite of b. To subtract, add the opposite or additive inverse of the number being subtracted. So if we're going to subtract a subtract b, that's equal to a change subtraction to addition and add the opposite. You see, we're defining subtraction in terms of addition. We already know how to add signed numbers, and there was quite a few steps involved when we were rehearsing adding signed numbers. But I already know how to add signed numbers, so I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Instead, I'm going to use addition of signed numbers to define subtraction. This is probably a place where you made likely errors on your entrance testing math exams. Instructors in high school maybe said to you at some point, or oh, you dropped a sign. Oh, you missed a sign. You had the answer, it was pretty close, but you missed a sign. This is likely where we made our goofy, silly mistakes. So we want to rehearse this. Subtraction we define in terms of addition. Something we already know how to add signed numbers. Actually, there's a list of about 8 steps to add signed numbers and their various combinations. So instead of looking at another 6 or 8 or 12 steps to figure out how to subtract, we define subtraction in terms of something we already know how to do. We just look it up in the library. We already know how to add signed numbers. So again, maybe high school teachers told you we're going to have A subtract B, do the crisscross, do the crisscross, or something to that effect. Again, A subtract B, we have A, we're going to change subtraction to addition and add the opposite. So change subtraction, that's the crisscross. Various instructors use various terms. So now why or how? How does this work? Well, in this case, I have an operation of subtraction. When I change subtraction to addition and add the opposite, I know the sign of this term. Is it a positive or a negative term? You see, the sign of that term is tied up or wrapped into the operation of subtraction. So we sometimes miss or lose or drop a sign pretty easily. So why? We're going to make ourselves more efficient. In subtraction, I always change. I always, oh, I see subtraction. I know you're looking at me like, oh my goodness, this is really, yeah. We have fun in our math class. We always, always, always change subtraction to addition and add the opposite of the term being subtracted. I'm not making this up. It's exactly what the definition says. To subtract, add the opposite or the additive inverse of the number being subtracted. So let's look at a couple examples. 4 subtract 9. Pretty simple, but you know what? Our expressions do get a little more involved, and in your next math course, they get a little more involved. So we do want to know how to control sign. So this is 4 subtract. Oh, I see subtraction. Always, always, always change subtraction to addition and add the opposite. Now in mathematics, you'll find that when we change one thing, we have to kind of change something else to keep our pendulum balanced. I'm working across my equal sign, so I want to keep everything balanced. And now we know how to add sign numbers. Our answer is -5. How about -4 plus 9? +5. And how about a -4 subtract 5? Well, let's see. That's a -4, and I'm going to change, because I always, always, always change subtraction to addition and add the opposite. And my answer is -9. There are some other examples on page 55 for you to look at. And then when we're adding fractions, everyone's favorite. Whenever we add or subtract fractions, you have to think about the piece of pie. We have a whole 100%, we have a whole pie sitting over there cut into, this pie is cut into 11 pieces and this pie is cut into 11 equal wedges. And to add or subtract fractions, we have to have a least common denominator. So with my eagle eyes, I see that I have a common denominator. So now I can add my numerators all over my common denominator. I'll have 7/11s. Adding or subtracting fractions. I have to think about that piece of pie and make sure that I have common denominators. And with my eagle eyes, I see that I have common denominators. Next, I notice that I have subtraction going on. And I always, always, always change subtraction to addition and add the opposite. Now I know the sign of this term. Adding or subtracting fractions, I have to have a common denominator, and with my eagle eyes I see that I do, so I'm going to add my numerators all over my common denominator. In the numerator, I'm adding, I get a -5 over 5x. Always with fractions, before you circle your final answer, we look to simplify. Looking to simplify, we're looking for other names for 1. Other names for 1. And I have actually a -1 times 5 in the numerator, and I have 5 times x in the denominator. Looking for another name for 1, I see that I have 5 over 5. It's all multiplication. So 5 goes into 5 once, leaving a -1 over x. (3/8) plus 5/6. Fractions again. Just rehearsing. We're adding, subtracting. Think about that piece of pie with fractions, and we need a least common denominator. And now I see that I don't have common denominators, so I'll build my least common denominator table. I'm going to pick up all denominators and build my least common denominator. And I do that using prime factorization. 8 using my prime factors is 2 times 2 times 2. 6 using prime factors is 2 times 3. Now in my least common denominator column, I don't have any factors represented. I'll go column by column. I need all of these factors. There are none represented yet, so I need all of those. As I compare to the next denominator column, I have a factor of 2 already represented, but I don't have a factor of 3. So 8 times 3 is 24. So my least common denominator of 8 and 6 is 24. So now I need to change 3/8 to its equivalent in 24ths. So I have 3/8, and I want my denominator to be 24. 8 times 6 would be 8 times 3, right? 8 times 3. 8 times 3 would be 24. But if I multiply the denominator by 3, I'll have to multiply the numerator by 3, as Another name for 1. Our multiplication identity, 1 times anything is equal to the number itself. Multiplication identity, 1 times any number is equal to the number itself. It retains its own identity. 3 over 3 is another name for 1. And then I want to convert 5/6 to its equivalent in 24s. And 6 times 4. If I multiply the denominator by 4, I need to multiply the numerator by 4. Another name for 1. I'm not changing the value of my original fractions. I'm obviously changing the way they look, but I'm maintaining their identity in value from one denominator to another denominator. Well, this is 3 times 3 would be 9 over 3 times 8 is 24, plus 5 times 4 is 20 over 6 times 4 is 24. Now with my eagle eyes, I see that I have my least common denominator, so I can add my numerators all over my common denominator. Adding, I get 29 24ths. A couple other principles we want to remember is the zero property of multiplication. 0 times any number is equal to 0. Any number times 0 is equal to 0. Commutative law for multiplication. 3 times 4 is the same as 4 times 3. As long as it's all multiplication, my terms can commute. Actually, 0 times 0 is equal to 0. So if I have 0 times b, b can be any number. Any number times 0 would be 0. 6 times x equals 0. Six times x equals 0. To unwrap 6, it's tied up in multiplication. I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. 1/6, 1/6. I'm multiplying by the reciprocal. A number times its reciprocal goes to 1. 1 times x is x equals, and 0 times any number is 0. We can check then. 6x. We're going to substitute our answer. We said that x equals 0. 6 times, I'm going to substitute my answer. 6 times 0 is 0, and that equals 0. So I can circle my answer. Three plus 4 is equal to 7, and 4 plus 3 is equal to 7. It's a commutative law for addition. Terms can commute. Now the commutative law, how are you going to remember that? I think of it as commute. We commute from one location on campus to another location on campus. We commute from the commons to our classroom, and we're in kind of a group. Then we commute. We're changing all the time. We're commuting. So my terms are commuting. They're moving. 3 plus 4 equals 7, but I could let those terms commute, change their position, and it'd still be equal to the commutative law for multiplication. 3 times 4 equals 12, and 4 times 3 equals 12. It's the commutative law for multiplication that we're making use of to maintain our equivalency. Subtract 6. This is 14. 6 subtract 20. Change subtraction to addition, add the opposite, negative 14. The commutative law does not hold for subtraction. And division. 6 divided by 3. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 3 divided by 6. I'm allowing my terms to commute. They're changing places in the expression. It would be 3/6, which is 1/2. The commutative law for division does not hold. So the commutative law for addition and the commutative law for multiplication are laws and principles that we make use of in solving equations. All right, we are reviewing yet, so we have a bit of content to review before we catch up with our actual chapter 4. In the meantime, please work on your devices, establish your accounts at My Math Lab, and do your practice drills. And we'll see you tomorrow.